So what can volunteer youth leaders, what can congregations do if they're not mental health professionals, if they're not qualified social workers? I think they can provide communities. And I think the opportunity that churches have that they really step up to the plate for is this idea that we can create intergenerational communities where young people have connections with their peers, with adults who cared about them, with younger people that they're bringing along, that the sense that they belong to a network of people that can do much more than just make sure that they stay Christian into adulthood, that can help them get jobs, that can give them the wisdom of life, that can be extra people to call on when things go wrong. So I think there's a real opportunity in our congregations. What can congregations do that a secular youth service can't do, or that a high school can't do? I think is this sense of intergenerational community is a real opportunity.
Things we actually have to train our youth leaders to actually not be setting a goal to convert somebody, but you're training them that they're actually going to be going on this long journey with these young people, where your goal isn't to run a Bible study or those sorts of things. It's actually about living and doing life with them and helping them to explore and discover and find the answers that they're looking for. The Māori people are now starting to look at, well, what does faith for a person who's Māori, what if I'm a Christian, and all those sorts of things. But it's having an effect on particularly young people who aren't Māori, and they're looking at their faith, and you're getting them making comments like, actually, I don't want a colonial faith, I want a real faith.
And just practically, I think, we always talk about it begins with me. Who is the person that I can walk alongside and do what what Neville was just talking about in terms of being church. And I think the training, if you think of an ideal world, the training for youth ministry is actually just doing life and faith all together. And it's not actually training for youth ministry, it's living our lives as disciples with everyone as the body of Christ. So intergenerationally, that really just looks like I'm doing life or walking alongside one other person. And we often talk about just starting with one person. And it's not necessarily a young person. Sometimes our churches don't even have young people in them. So how is it that I can share my faith or build a relationship outside perhaps even someone who's not like me, so that I can, do that listening that stays curious about, well, why are they asking those questions, or what does that reflect about me and my answers and those kind of things. But it's really just building up, starting with one simple relationship, and growing that.
The image of and alongside a Rachel is one that you mentioned, and one that I love. It's not kind of charging in front saying, come on, quick, say the sinner's prayer and get over the line. It's not a transactional approach to faith. It's an alongside of it that is about transformational faith over the long haul. And I think if we're to kind of go, how do we envisage this generation being reached and empowered and discipled, I don't think there's 3 easy steps to do that, but it is in the imagery of kind of how do we come alongside, listen well, and understand faith as a transformation, not a transaction.
The place where we started was there's real diversity in the room, diversity of physical location, diversity of conviction, and how that's been informed. I just wonder, as we move forward, there'll be a greater sense of looking for partnerships and to be informed from places that are unlike our own, rather than just like gravitating with like. And so I wonder if that part of the training answers part of the training question as well, but just even having these conversations on a regular basis with people who are on the same broad page, and yet see that page from a very different vantage point and bring different experiences to the conversation. So I think that sense of just broader partnership is going to be some of the healthiest ministry to, with, and for young people into the future.
The good news that I love about the intergenerational approach to ministry that for congregations is that, like when you think about a professional youth worker, then there's all sorts of areas that they can be trained in where they can grow their skill and competence. And then the more they hone their skill and professionalize it, they may begin to create youth ministries that are more and more segregated from the church because it's doing outreach work in a particular way, or it's working with this particular outreach group and they've got very particular needs and so on. But the great gift of the intergenerational community and the social capital that's present in a congregation, like the good news that it represents for your average adult in a congregation, is that you're not irrelevant. Like, to the degree that you kind of grew up and your kids might have moved out of home or whatever, and all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I don't know anything about youth culture. And now, you know, like there's professional teachers and professional coaches, and I'm just a soccer mum or this or that or whatever. My kid doesn't even want me around. I guess I've become irrelevant to their lives. And the great news of generating this intergenerational community around young people, and the great gift that represents, is you're not irrelevant. And you just being a half decent human being alongside other people and devoting them some time and some interest and some energy. You know, if the average young person has 5 interested and concerned adults wrapped around them, you know, their chances of living a fantastic life just go infinitely up through the roof. So embedding interest and concern in young adults as youth ministry in an everyday congregation, and not creating kind of segregated, professionalized, targeted ministries. It's just this wonderful opportunity of what youth ministry can look like in a local church setting, staffed by average Joe punters every day who don't need any kind of training apart from saying, just look around. You yourself are one of the greatest gifts that can be given.